Hello, welcome back. Yes, we're going to talk about mines, running adventures. This is Game Master, or should I say Game Master Guide stuff. I've been talking about tutorials, and now I realize nobody types the word tutorial into Google or even probably types it into YouTube. So we're switching it over to Game Master Guide rather than tutorial for today. I'm going to put up a poll. Feel free to take part. Hello, F Hubba. Yes, I am awake. It was just a little late. I'm here. Don't worry. And don't freak out. Thank you for being here. I do appreciate it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a presentation, and then I'm going to go from the presentation, and then we're going to do some workshopping around mining and building your own mines. But I'm still going to give you a basic still a basic presentation if my voice and my body actually allows me to do so. We'll see how we go. I'm obviously choking again on something. Seem to do a lot of that. Anyway, grab some food, some drink, make sure you're comfortable, and we'll get straight into the topic of mines in just a little moment. And I think I'm ready. Cool. Let's try water. Hi, welcome to How to RPG. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about designing your own mine or mines for your role-playing games. So this is part of running adventures for the Game Master. This is Game Master guidance or a guide, and I'm hoping this will be useful to you. I'm going to go through fairly quickly some of the basics around the mine. So there are certain aspects to a mine that are built and created. So the first thing is you have the thing at the very top. That is called the mine head frame. The mine head frame is built like a A-frame or A structure, and it's used with a winch or a hoist of some type, and it's operated along the main vertical mine shaft. This is what lowers things and lifts, bring things to the surface. So whether that's personnel or people or resources or the actual mining ore, that's what it's used for. It's basically the head frame for a lift. Now, passenger or cargo lifts can often be connected to the same head frame. So they may be exactly the same lift, but quite often there is a separate lift for the passengers going up and down and for the cargo. But they will be using the same shaft. The winch in the head frame can be powered a few different ways, such as a mechanical crank that you simply turn by hand. It could be a steam engine, you could use a counterweight, you could use magic. You may even have a team of horses or animals that pull on the cable that allows it to go up and down, and it's as simple as that. Next we have the mine shafts. So there are actually three different types of mine shaft. They serve different purposes or have multiple purposes to them. The first one is the bell-shaped mine, and this is the one I'm going to talk about the most. It's essentially, it looks like a bell. If you put it under the ground, that's the shape of it. It starts very narrow at the top and widens out as you go deeper and deeper and deeper. And then you have the vertical shaft, which is basically just a shaft that goes up and down. And then you have open mining, which is not very exciting for a role-playing game because it's just a great huge hole in the ground, but very safe in terms of mining. The main mine shaft transports your ore, your minerals, dirt, rock, anything that they dig up from below the ground. It brings it to the surface, and it also, as I said, acts as a way of transporting your workers or your passengers up and down, but it also allows for air to be moved up and down through the actual mine. So it's like its own air vent in many respects. So air ventilation shafts can also be dug, additional ones, vertically into the mine, and they can be spread out throughout the mine so you can feed air to various places. Now the reason for doing this is to avoid toxic or flammable gases building up, and you want to be able to bring oxygen into the mine because it's quite difficult to shift those gases out of the air and replace them with oxygen that you can actually breathe. So there's a rationale behind that. Sometimes you'll find a horizontal tunnel will act as the main entrance to a mine, and then it leads into the complex, and usually it will be connected to a main vertical shaft leading downward rather than continuing horizontally into the mountain. Now, mine levels. The mine will consist of horizontal tunnels, usually coming off the main vertical shaft, and then you have sort of a string. They can go left and right if you're using a bell. If you're using a different system such as just a vertical shaft, then it might not be in a bell shape. It depends on where the ore is. You don't necessarily just dig in any direction. Now the different mine levels are used for transporting ore and waste to the surface, and you would use a railing system. So along those mine levels, there's going to be some sort of railing system. Now, whether that is a cart system that's pushed by hand, whether it's a railing system that is dragged or pulled with carts that are on wheels by small donkeys or horses or some other creature, or maybe you have an engine of some kind that pulls on them. Maybe people are pulling on these and using a rope connected to a crank. There's lots of different ways. Unfortunately, the movement of anything along the horizontal would still result in injuries because there's usually a tendency for there to be a slight tilt downward. And what could happen is if you used rope, hemp rope, it would break, and then the cart would go out of control and then slam into your workers and kill them. So they eventually replace them with basically metal or steel fiber rope, which is much stronger and doesn't break, certainly as long as it's looked after. So the main mine levels, these are the things you want your players to explore, okay? And they use these mine levels to explore and find, if they're building the mine for the purpose of digging out something, to find new veins of ore to dig out. And so that means there should be plenty of levels for your players and locations for your players to actually interact with. They would also backfill a production slope. Now, a production slope is where you find the ore vein, and this is to stop the ore from collapsing, because if you think about a bell shape underground, you're digging up the ground, and if you don't put some of it back, there's just a great huge hole with a whole lot of ground above, but there's nothing supporting it. So of course the whole mine can collapse in on itself if you're not careful. So your backfilling was quite important. So you would usually find something like that happening along the horizontal levels. Next, mine lifts. There's what's called the skip lift. It is used to move your ore, your mine, your dirt, your rock from the mine to the surface. And then there's the cage. Now the cage is for transporting the passengers. It allows them to, any kind of humanoid can be lifted up through there. It's pretty easy to operate. It's usually not complicated in any way. And it will, again, operate on the same shaft as the skip lift, which is where all your ore is going. You would also have a small bird or animal, canary, in the lift, in the cage with people to help determine if there's enough oxygen to actually breathe as you would go down. Because if the bird died, then you knew that the small creature would not be able to survive, and if a small creature can't survive, then eventually a medium-sized creature or humanoid would not be able to breathe the air. So as soon as you see the bird die or in panicking, then you knew there was something wrong and it was time to go back up rather than continuing down. So it would not be uncommon for a canary to die in that small cage. And you may even find a canary in a cage that's been abandoned, that's perished, just the skeleton. Evil miners replace the small bird with pixies and fairies. I suppose you could do something like that, or even fey creatures. It's really up to you. It's your fantasy adventure. It's completely up to you. Okay, going back to the mine cart and tracks. Carts and a rail track, as I said, usually laid on the horizontal passageways coming off the main shaft or tunnels. And they allow, as I said, for the movement of ore and people. So what I would suggest is when you look at your carts, you need to decide what sort of system or technology is going to be utilized for operating them. As I said before, push carts, hand crank, steam engine, pulled by ponies, carried by a giant ant, I suppose. There's various ways you can do this. But if you don't have like a mining cart in your mine, you've done something wrong. It's something you don't want to leave out. Mines always have a sump. Now, what is a mine sump? It is the space, it's an open space below the main shaft, and it's there to collect water at the lowest level of the mine, because that's where water tends to go to. When your water drips down from above or it comes out of the ground, it goes to the lowest point, and so you need a space for that. So the sump stopped the mine from flooding at the lower levels. So so you would have your mine connected to an underwater stream potentially. And it's quite common for there to be underwater streams, rivers and lakes in the ground that you will not be aware of. So when they're digging, they would find these things and suddenly there's a rush of water. That's always a bad thing, because you cannot control what's going to happen inside the ground with a mine when suddenly you come across one of these things, because they literally are like underground rivers and lakes and so forth. So breaking into one of those is really bad, and that could flood a mine, cause all sorts of problems. But you would have to make sure something like that, if you found it and were able to control it, which is probably pretty unlikely, you need to feed it into the sump, and you probably need to leave the mine very quickly just in case it destabilizes. When it rains, the mine would fill up with water too, because of the main head frame. Water would actually go into there, but also water would leach into the ground and seep deeper and deeper and deeper, and it will go to the lowest point, and if there's a hole in the ground, that's where it wants to go. That's where water tends to travel to. So it can be a little bit overwhelming at times. So eventually the water sump would fill up and need to be emptied, so you need to have a pumping system. Now, how you decide to sort that out is up to you, but usually it's a series of pipes, and it's connected to an engine that would then suck it out. Now, in terms of fantasy, how do you do that? Magic. You can probably get away with doing magic. Magic will do the job. Okay, the mine production slope. I mentioned that before. This is basically the vein of ore that the miners are digging up. That's their resource. That's what they need. You're going to find various tools there, usually mines, picks, hammers, spades. You're going to have buckets as well. You can't always get your mining carts exactly where you're digging out, because the tracks may not have been laid. So they would often have to fill something that was quite small that could be carried to the mining cart. So you probably want to have a few tools like that. Even something like a chisel might be found down there in terms of some of the tools the miners would use. You'd also need to have light sources. So anything that produced light that didn't produce a flame was great. Not always possible though. Okay, your monster populations in a mine. Where will they be? What are they like? Most of your monsters will live near the surface, or at least close to the entrance or the main shafts, because the lower they go down, the more dangerous it is for them. So you need oxygen to breathe as a creature, but something like a golem or a construct would function as a great miner, and you could also position them in the mine much further down, because they don't have to breathe air and they don't need to eat, so they don't need to worry about those sorts of things. And that's one of the primary issues, is being able to actually breathe in oxygen when you're in a mine. Also, undead would probably be living deeper down in a mine, because they don't need to breathe and they can't drown, so you don't have to worry about those sorts of things. Again, golems don't need to worry about water as well, because they can't drown either. You're mining a living space. Living quarters and barracks would not usually be set up inside a mine. You would always have them above ground in tents or in some buildings, because the mine is way too dangerous to live in. So you never put your living quarters inside the mine. Always in structures or tents above ground, okay? Dwarves and gnomes will probably have some sort of underground city or living space, but it would not be situated in the mine. It would be separate from that. Otherwise, it would be too difficult to survive. Too dangerous to work in the same space. If you're working in the same space as you're living, it's way too dangerous, even for a dwarf or a gnome, who are primarily living underground, correct? Right. You have your mine pump station. I kind of mentioned this before. That is, you need to have a pump station somewhere. Now, your pump station can be situated inside the mine, but it's probably smarter to have a pump house or pump station above ground, because you need to have access to it, and you can't afford for your pump station, since it's got to pump water out of the mine, you can't afford it to be breaking down, and you can't afford it to wind up trapped or something collapsing on it. And mine collapses are quite common, so you definitely want to have something like that. Now, there's another thing that you can do to deal with oxygen, and that is the mine furnace. A furnace is quite dangerous, so anytime you try to have a furnace... Now, the reason for having a furnace deep into the mine is that if you burn you can actually draw oxygen into the mine. This is one of these techniques they used. Quite clever, but also problematic because one, it allows your so oxygen is going to get burnt up by the fire. It will also draw oxygen down into the mine, but it also means if you have explosive gases and you have a furnace explosion, everybody dies again. So pumping air down into the mine is probably the safest way to go. Now, there are a number of things that you can have as mine hazards and mine traps, and I suggest you just have a look at the things. When it comes to mine hazards, if it's a hazard that you would normally find in a cave system, it's probably going to work. But there are a couple of different hazards that you would have when you're dealing with a mine. I've kind of gone over them already before. Flammable gas, flooding, stuff like that. They're all going to be hazards that you would have associated with a mine. Now, when it comes to traps, if somebody's going to trap that location, putting traps in a mine is probably not required because it's such a dangerous location already. But if you're going to have traps, I would utilize things that are more natural in nature. So any kind of trap that you would associate with a cave can be associated again with a mine pretty easily without too much trouble. So that's everything I have for today on designing your own mine and how it should look and how it should be laid out. And hopefully this was useful to you. I want to thank my patrons who support me so I can keep doing this. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay. Okay, today we're working on some stuff, people. Today is, there's a bit of work to be done. And I have a few shortcuts for you. I'm hoping this will be useful to you. Some of you will be very familiar with this because I've already kind of presented these concepts before about 2.5 months ago. This time I did it again. The only reason I kind of presented it again is I wanted to present it again, so I recorded it. So I've recorded it today. That means that next time we roll back round and I'm talking about running adventures and Game Master Guide stuff around designing or making your own mines, the presentation will not be exactly the same. It will be different. Okay, that's my intention. So if you're all wondering what was going on, the intention is that I don't repeat myself too much if I can help it. So let's have a look at chat, and then we're going to go in and we're going to start working on some stuff. I thought it would be good to work on some hazards, some traps. We're probably going to talk about a few other things that you guys want to talk about with regard to mining and designing your own mines. Any ideas that you have, I'm certainly open to incorporating for sure. Okay, so Fred, I can't see everything that you've written. Fred Hubber, they can be just the purpose dug tunnels. They can break through into natural caves. Yes, they can. It's possible. The worst thing is when they break into a underground river or a lake, or a stream. Even a stream. Stream is not quite so bad, but an underground river, bad news for mining. Okay, hello Charles. Charles Butler is a patron. Thank you for being here. The irony, I was literally watching a tutorial video I searched with what's that? MTG tutorial. Oh, really? So Charles, I've ditched the word tutorial because I realized that hardly anybody was typing in the word tutorial. They were probably typing in DM guide or Dungeon Master Guide. I refuse to use that word if I can help it, and a title, which is of course going to hurt me really badly in terms of YouTube and people finding me. So Game Master Guide was sort of a compromise in terms of where my head is at. Okay, and yes. So what do we got here? Nacho Man, also a patron. Thank you for being here. Boss Bully Boy, hello. I'm hoping this was useful. Dinomancer, hello, how are you? Also a patron. We've got a lot of patrons here today. It's always nice when I have so many people showing up and they're patrons. It's awesome. So a lot of this material that I'm covering today, yes, will wind up on Patreon. I would not expect the stuff on mines to go up there unless you request it. Okay, because I'm going to take my time making sure I fill it out completely. But it does mean that I will go over this stuff until I get all the stuff that needs to be there. I haven't decided how much needs to be there, but once I'm satisfied that there's enough there that it's worthwhile turning into a PDF for patrons, I will do so. Right, nutshell, what do you got here? One day I'll be mature enough not to snigger at the word shaft, but today is not the day. Well, it's all right. I'm not going to worry about it. Does anybody else? Michael, Stan, how are you? Also a patron. Nice to have you here. Try not to forget about the assayer's office, always near a mine. Useful for valuing the content of ore for valuable minerals. So an assayer's office, I actually was looking at that. I know what you're talking about, and I have been doing a bit of research. An assayer's office is usually not inside the mine. Much to my surprise, if we're talking about an assayer's office, you're talking about a gold mine, a silver mine, and then of course there would be others as well, like a diamond mine or something like that. Assayer's office is usually above ground. It would be too full. It would be very, very foolish to be valuing your finds underground, and so far that seems to fall in line with modern mining. So the assayer's office is usually above ground, and you will probably find that, you know, if there's no good reason to be underground in the mine, then you don't put it down there. That's why I'm suggesting a lot of your pumps and equipment, you know, will probably not be in the mine itself. It would be above ground, and just for easy access, so you can replace an entire pump house if you need to, if the thing explodes or, you know, whatever. A fairy dragon instead of a canary. Yes, you could have a fairy dragon as rather than a canary. It would be quite a horrible thing to do to a fairy dragon, but oh well, you know, life's life. What do you got here, Fred? Yes, always some kind of money changer. Trading mines, minerals for coins. Okay, I'm not sure. The bucket bridge for simplest water removal. Now I hadn't thought about that. Certainly it would be very, very slow to use a bucket for actually emptying the sump. If you think about that water sump, if you were to use a water, if you were to do it that way, it would probably take a lot longer than you want it to. But it's cheap, except for the fact that you've still got to get somebody to actually do the work. I suppose you could have a larger you wouldn't have a bucket that's standard size. So let's just add in your little suggestion there, because I had thought about that, but I also thought it was a little bit silly to put down here, the bucket bridge. I have no doubt they used it. Bridge. Oh, no, come on. Okay. And of course, you could run it off, since your sump is at the bottom of your main shaft, you could potentially use a bucket to pull stuff up the main shaft, which would make life a lot easier too. Probably using the same lift system as you had before. So for everything else, like, you know, whatever lift system you've got. So yeah, okay, I've got it down here, Fred. I've made a note of it. In Louisiana, a floating drill rig punched through a lake bed into a salt mine. Okay. Draining the lake into the mine. Oh, that's not good. That's not good. There must have been a lot of people die if that was the case, because it would have flooded very quickly. What do you got here, Charles? If anyone hasn't seen the YouTube short documentary, is it covering that salt mine? I'd highly recommend watching it. Whole barges went bye-bye and were never seen again. Yes, I can believe that. Oh, it's a sinkhole disaster of 1980. Okay. I wonder if I could have a lich as a sort of mine company CEO foreman, so the mines aren't a danger to him, but he can inspect and manage them. That's actually quite clever. I suppose you could. Why would a lich do that? It would have to be about gaining more power, right? That would make sense. I'm cleaning the kitchen, so I'm just listening. No problems, Michael. You keep listening. Surprisingly, no deaths in that mine. Flooded. If I okay, so nobody died. That's a bit of a surprise. Okay, I got to the bottom of the chat. I'm going to switch over to my phone for tracking chat, and I'm going to start working on a couple of things, hazards for a mine, but also I want to deal with traps as well. And depending on how much time we have today, we'll move on to a discussion around other things as well. But that's sort of my thoughts as to how to approach this today. So let's go to where I need to be. I am large enough, which is good. And I believe it's time to share my screen. Share my screen. Here we go. Okay, so right now you can see mine hazards is empty and mine traps is empty. No, you can't, because I haven't shown you that screen. There, by now I have. There we go. And I don't have my phone, so that's not going to help. Let me grab my phone. Okay, I got my phone now. And I get back into position, so I'm nice and comfortable, and hopefully about the right space, so I can get at my keyboard. La da 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 dee da do do do. Nope, there's a lot going on today. Let's get rid of all of these things. I don't need any of them. Thank you very much. No, yes. Bear with me, people. Just bringing up the chat on my phone. Okay, now I can see it. Okay, what do you got here? Undead Mining Corporation. When you don't mind your dead brother being a miner. Yeah, exactly. Okay, all right, so good. I can see the chat. I can see what I've got here. I have something kind of partly prepared. It's not going to solve the problem really quickly in terms of what I need to cover, but I do have this from Natural Caves. When we were talking about cave design and making our own caves, investigating caves, we did actually have a whole bunch of different ideas in terms of hazards. They will not all apply to a mine because a mine is still slightly different in terms of its nature. So without the formatting, let's stick that in. I don't want numbers. I want to go back up and I want to make it just a bullet point. Bullet point. There we go. Now we're bullet pointing it. Hello, Shiner81. Hello, how are you? Big Kid, also a patron. Thank you for being here. What's this? Your Undead Mining Corporation. Hey, it's better than supervising, what is it? Camper pot removal? Oh, come on. I know what you're talking about here. You're talking about the latrine. You're talking about the toilet stuff. Okay, so naturally forming, now this doesn't apply. So I had marked down darkness, and darkness in a mine would definitely be a hazard. Narrow passageways, cracks in the caves that require squeezing through. Now, narrow passageways, cracks in the caves, you probably wouldn't be squeezing through a crack. That would be a very stupid thing to do. So I'm going to remove this. This is not something you do when you're mining. Yeah, unless you want to die early. So we'll get rid of that. Stalactites, stalagmites, you might come across them as you're digging, if you dig your way into an actual cavern. Magma pools, tubes and streams, well, it's possible to dig into. You'd be an idiot to start digging a mine in a volcanically active location, but we'll leave that there anyway. Yeah, the chamber pot, exactly. Flammable gas pockets is very common in a mine, so we'll keep that. Cave-in and rock slides, absolutely. A tidal wave cave where at high tide the cave fills with water. Is that really something you would have in a mine? It's very uncommon. There aren't that many mines that are placed by the coastline where you might accidentally dig into a tidal cave. So I'm not entirely sure about that one. I'll have a think about it. Fred, I know, knows a lot about that sort of stuff by the sounds of it. If there's such a thing as mining right by the coastline where you might accidentally dig your way into a tidal cave and it fills with water at high tide, which would create a lot of problems. Because the less water you have in your mine, the better. The last thing you want to do is dig into a cave that is connected to the coastline. Holes and pits, cave cliff face. I suppose you might have those. Holes and pits make sense. I'm fine with those. I'm not so sure about a cave face as a hazard. Slime makes the surface slippery. Yes, slime. Green slime, corrosive. Yes, we can put green slime in our mines. I don't think that's going to be a problem. Brown mold, animal and monster poo. Yes. Yeah, spider webs, magnetized ore, and heated geysers. Lack of oxygen is another hazard. So lack of oxygen, as we were discussing before, quite a common problem. Lack of oxygen deep in the mine. That would be another hazard you would have. Any subterranean thing can be a mine because they can break into the lair of a lich, beholder, Balor, or dragon. There is Wave Echo Cave, which is also classified as a mine. Yeah, I suppose. Okay, so let's. So one of the things we haven't put in here is, what else is there? Narrow passageways, stalagmites. Okay. Unknown cavities, and caves, caverns. We also need to include water. So we're going to put this here. We'll put this here. So underground, rivers, streams, springs. That's something that you can wind up finding. As soon as you start digging in the ground, you might find yourself an underground spring. And I guess the concept of an underground spring is the water's coming from below going up, whereas the river is traveling horizontally usually, or a stream is kind of traveling horizontally. And then and lakes, an underground lake, lakes that flood the mine. So we were talking about that before. So I think, have we got everything that we needed to have here? I think we've got all the hazards that relate to a mine, unless I've missed something. You'll let me know if I have missed anything. Okay. Darkness. I can't see. Okay. All right. So we've got hazards. Cave cliff face. I suppose if you wind up in a cavern, then there might be cliff faces as well. So I'll leave it. I'll leave it. I won't mess with it. Okay. So next, heated geysers. Yes, you can find heated geysers under the ground. Would be unfortunate if you did, but you could. I think we've covered all the different things that are related to hazards, naturally forming hazards that you would find in a mine. Okay, there's quite a lot, as you might have noticed. Quite a few. Okay, next. Now, I haven't even started talking about monsters, people, so we'll get there soon enough. Now, the mechanics behind your different hazards, I'm probably not, unless you stipulate that you want me to give you mechanics. The problem with giving you mechanics on these different hazards is they would relate to whatever role-playing game you're playing. So whether if you're playing 5e, some of this stuff will be in your DMG or in the books and resources you have. If you're playing an older version of D&D, then you'll probably find stuff like this already. If you're playing Pathfinder, I'm sure they got something there. I don't know what it is. I got the book in front of me, the Game Mastery Guide, so I could look. But I don't know if people want me to build mechanics for the different hazards, you need to let me know, and I'll think about how I can do it so it's as system agnostic as possible, because I think that would be probably more sensible to make it system agnostic. Okay, now traps. I believe that we did cover traps as well when I was covering caves. And if I can find it, I'm going to port them over because they should be pretty much identical or very, very similar. Okay, here we cave traps. And I'm going to have to review this because there is a bunch of additional traps that would be something you might potentially put in a mine. I think the thing I do want to say is putting traps in a mine is not a great idea. It's it's one of the worst ideas under the sun. It's dangerous enough down there as it is. You don't really need to put anything else down there, but I know that's not going to be good enough, right? Okay, so let's have a look at traps. Hashtag have I suggested all the hazards you would find in a mine? All right. So I'll let you guys decide if you want to fill that in and let me know. Let me look at the traps and see which ones are going to work. And then I've got a couple of books here that I can review to check that I've collected everything up. Okay. Okay, so, well, a trap in a mine has to be constructed. So that was easy, but it's usually unwise and unnecessary to place traps in a mine because of all the natural hazards. Okay. How do I get that? That's not the word hazard. Let's try hazards. Okay, so we've got that. Players do not like cave traps. Well, they're not going to like cave mines. I suppose we can leave that as a bullet point, but that's not really a trap, is it? That's just more waffly general stuff. Let's find something that's a bit more specific. Kobolds are the most likely humanoid to build a wide range of traps in a mine that they live in. Do I want to say this? No. I'm gonna say kobolds don't really do mining. I mean, I suppose they can. I suppose they could, but I don't think that they really do. I think am I kind of pigeonholing some of the fantasy races too much here? Going gnomes and dwarves. But there's also, I mean, when it comes to mining, fire giants do a lot of mining as well. Mountain giants would probably do a lot of mining as well. Fire giants, yeah. Okay. So I'm kind of tempted to leave that alone. I'm going to put a question mark beside it. I actually think maybe it needs to go. Okay, what have we got here in the chat? Non-existent treasure. Rotting support timbers. Rotting support timbers. Yes. Yes, you're right. Very, very true. Rotting support timbers. Yes, absolutely. And Buckaroo Bonsai, hello, welcome back. It's been a little while, haven't seen you around for a bit. I think traps add to the variety. Dwarves especially would make them against subterranean creatures. Ropers, so Big Kid, we'll deal with monsters shortly. Hazards, I'm thinking in terms of natural hazards rather than creatures. And they are miners, so let's add in a few different species who would make traps for our mine. And they would not be living in the mine. So kobolds, the most likely humanoid in order to build a wide range of traps in a mine. We're going to go with this. So, kobolds, gnomes, dwarves. Who else is there? Dwarves, fire giants. Mountain giants, I'm pretty sure. Are the most likely humanoids. Here we go. Humanoids to build a wide range of traps in a mine. That's primarily because they are miners. What do you got here? Hazard. An old guidepost that are no longer accurate, improperly secured, lifts and mining carts. Ah, yes, that's true. So that's true. That's true. So decaying ropes and cables. What else did you have here? Rusting mine carts. What else is there? Malfunctioning lifts. Okay, I think that's not too bad. Pockets are not. I've got the noxious gas already. Shiner 81. It's already there, so that's done. Sniff Leblin create gadgets in Magnitech, but I'm sure they build mining machinery and gadgets that sell to the Underdark market. Yeah, but they're not really going to be the miners, are they? So unless the Sniff Neblin are actually doing some mining, I'm going to leave them off the list for this. Okay, now let's review my traps that I have here. Pit trap, pretty obvious. Doom spore, I put a question mark beside it because I didn't explain what a doom spore was. Collapsing ceilings, that's probably going to be pretty common. A maze, well, a mine could feel like a maze to a certain degree. Rolling sphere or boulder, yes, that's potentially a problem. Bridge traps, yes, because there might be bridges that need to be constructed in a mine. So yeah, okay. It's a bit of a stretch. I feel like the maze and the bridge trap are a big, huge stretch. I'm going to say it now. Acid pool full of sulfuric acid from thermal or volcanic activity. Yes, I suppose. False stepping stones that cross a water or liquid pool. These seem very specific. I don't know that I like these very much. So let's put in some more traps. Let's put in some traps here. I'm going to go through my books and look at some of the things that see which ones will actually sort of fit in with the mine structure. We'll start with book 1. Bear with me while I get this open and have a look. Do I have traps easily accessible? Probably not. So what am I looking at right now? This is actually the Dungeon Master Guide for Dungeons and Dragons 4e. It is not the Dungeon Master Guide for 5e, because the 5e one is kind of shite. It doesn't have very much. It's pretty poor. So, where was our traps? Adventures, hazards, puzzles, traps and hazards. There we go. 85. Things that would fit for a mine. So, a false floor pit trap. Well, we already had that one. The rock slide. Well, yes, we've got it down as a natural hazard, so I don't think we need to repeat it as a trap as such. If they break into something like the Carl's Bad Caverns, there's a maze, but miners would normally make a maze on purpose. Oh, I suppose that's... Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I suppose that's true. Good point. I'll leave the maze. Okay. Rock slide, I'm going to leave in the hazards rather than being a trap. Spear gauntlet. Hidden spears thrust throughout the floor in response to pressure plates. Spear gauntlet, I suppose you could put a spear gauntlet. It would be a pain in the butt, because it would kind of undermine the mining process a little bit. I don't know how people feel about the spear gauntlet. I'm not convinced. I will mark it down, but I will put a question mark beside it. Spear gauntlet. And then what else have we got here? Magic crossbow turret. Too easy to see, so I don't think so. Doom spores, which I didn't actually explain very much, but it is here. Usually found in large natural caverns or in areas tainted by the Shadowfell. These patches of large toadstool-shaped fungus. Okay, so I will at least type in a little bit of information about the doom spore, shall I? Doom spore is a large toadstool shaped fungus that grow 3 feet tall, and release clouds of deadly spores. Spores if disturbed. Okay. The doom spore. Release this. Okay. Doom spore is down. Okay, that's good. Got it. The pendulum scythe, I don't think we'd put a pendulum scythe in. It's too difficult. It would undermine the mine too much. I don't think you put a pendulum scythe in there. Maybe a constructed location, but I don't think that's going to be suitable. So we'll leave that alone. Treacherous ice sheets doesn't really make sense. Poison dart wall. Poison dart wall, yes. You can probably get away with a poison dart wall. So... which kind of means if you're going to do a poison dart wall, then you probably would do something like a spear gauntlet. Because you're still got to have... I don't know, maybe I'm going to put a question mark beside that as well. Vart. You know what it is? What I wanted to do, I wanted to put in the word fart. I was supposed to put the word dart, but I wanted to type the word fart. There we go. Dart wool. I'll put a question mark beside that as well. Okay, not finished. There's rather a lot of these things. I'm not going to put glyph of warding. The reason I'm not going to put glyph of warding in a mine as a trap is because you can put magic traps anywhere in any type. So I think talking about those sorts of traps is almost pointless. Let's have a look else. What else we got here? The dagger thorn briar would make no sense. It's essentially what it is. It's a thorn briar, so no, you're not going to be putting that in. Flame jet. I suppose you could do a flame jet. Flame jet. It would be such a problem because it's fire, explosive gas. It's a big question mark, that one. I don't know about that. I think the caustic geyser. Well, we had geysers before in the natural hazard, so I don't think I need to put it under traps. Electrified floor, I don't think so. It doesn't make sense at all. Spectral tentacles, no, not really. Cave-in is under natural. We've got collapsing ceiling anyway. What you might have, probably one of the more common ones too, is a falling net. Net for capturing intruders. Does that sound about right to you? I think falling trap net. Yeah, the falling net for capturing intruders should be a pretty standard thing you'd have. Okay, let's keep going. What's next on my little list of things? Symbol of suffering. Oh, I don't know about that. Symbol of suffering? Do we really need a symbol of suffering? What do we got here? A glowing symbol wards the area. It's basically a magic trap. We'll just leave that. Soul gem. A strong many-faced gem in the center of the chamber. No, that's too obvious. Sphere of annihilation you wouldn't put there. So I think that covered all of the things that I wanted from that book. Let's put this down and grab the next book. Let's get our traps sorted out. Sweet. Dun, 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 dun. These are the ones that are sort of on the cards. The other ones are just a bunch of suggestion stuff. Okay, where am I? Traps in this book. Where are you? I'm looking for you. What am I looking in? So I'm looking in the 5e Dungeon Master Guide. I'm not expecting to find very much. I will be grabbing a couple more books to see what else I can pull together. What do we got here? All right. Well, actually, while I'm thinking and trying to sort that out, I'm going to ask you. Hashtag. What traps? Sorry. What traps make sense in a mine? You tell me. You tell me, people. Throw me a bone. See what you think. We'll see if we agree. You never know. It does happen sometimes. Okay. Traps. Siege, disease, poison, experience, combat, magic items, linking. There we go. 120 in this book. Here we go. 120. What do we got under 120? We have the setback stuff. That's not what we're after. We're not doing poison darts because we got that already. Poison needle is like the spear gauntlet, I guess. I guess you could say we had the rolling sphere of boulder already. You've got pits, fire-breathing statues. I don't think so. Falling net is here though. So we've got that collapsing roof. We've got a collapsing ceiling or roof. Sphere of annihilation. That's it. 2 pages of traps. What a waste of time that was. Okay. I suppose the poison needle is slightly different to the other one. Okay. You've contributed, and it's probably pretty easy to install into a mine. A poison needle is Not a lot of construction required. So probably the most common thing to actually wind up in a mine. Okay, so that's you down. Very good, very good. More water. Now, I want to pull from the next book. What have I got here? This is Pathfinder, the Game Mastery Guide for First Ed Edition. I'm not even going to bother looking in the Second Ed Edition Pathfinder book because, frankly, I don't like that book. I think it's kind of useless. So let's have a look and see if this book can give me anything useful. Traps. Hazards. Topics, disasters, chases, hazards. I suppose traps is going to be under hazards in this book. Does it look like it? Let's have a look. 244. 244. 244 gives me elemental haunts, hazards. Doom sink, yes. That's sample hazards, bad air. Rot grubs. Oh, is that it? I had such I have such a high opinion of this book. Is it actually failed me today? Traps. Where are you? What do you got here, Charles? Pressure plates. When triggering, it drops gates to hold person. Oh, I think what you're talking about is like a falling cage. Make sure miners weren't carried out of the carrying out ore or on their person, triggered by weight. Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, I get it. So it's like a scale. I would. So there are things like that, aren't they? But okay. So I'm going to include under falling net. Falling or drop down cage for capturing interlopers. Is that correct? Interlopers? Something like that. Okay, sweet. I feel like that's a security measure rather than a trap as such, isn't it? It's more like to stop them from taking stuff they shouldn't be. Right, yeah, yeah. Like the 26 rusted daggers they have looted from goblins. So what we would have? We'd have a weighing platform. A weighing platform. I guess that's something like that. Is that what we're talking about? A weighing platform? It feels like we are. Let me see if I can find traps in this book, because I had assumed that this book was did a really good job, and maybe it's got a weakness. And it does. A lack of traps. That is not good. Puzzles. Is it under hazards and traps? Is that what we're supposed to look under? H. H for hazard. Hazard, 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 hazard. Okay. Travel. Total per kill. Time. Oh, back to S. P. Okay. I apologise. I'm going to have to say that I'm sorry, people. I'm drowning in my mucus. This book here, the Pathfinder Game Mastery Guide, First Ed Edition. The Second Ed Edition one is just as bad. Well, actually, I think it's even worse. This is really bad for traps. If you needed traps, this is kind of useless. Like what the heck is going on? Like it's not any good as a resource at all, much to my surprise. It's strange. It's really weird. I got it here. Maybe a security measure where the mine was active, sure. Years later, when it's abandoned and forgotten, then it is transitioned into a trap since it is misunderstood. Ah, I see. Yes, I suppose that could work that way. I've seen collapsing bridges for when invading forces come defending mines or territory, such as... I think we had a collapsing bridge. Yeah, we had a bridge trap. Collapsing bridge trap. And that's what that was where my head was at when I was talking about that. So I'll put down collapsing bridge trap. How's that sound? Collapsing bridge trap. So I have that there. It's there. I made it. It's happened. What else have you got here? Collapsing bridge, other locations. Falling rock, a rock fall. Well, we've got collapsing ceilings, so that's kind of covered. We've got rock slides already. These are similar to the castle arrow slit, boiling all down holes and tent. Okay, I see what you're saying. I get it. Okay. So I think we've covered traps pretty well, but I still want to look at a few more options to see if we can build it out completely. So there's a few other things going on here that we may have not considered. I mean, of course, you could put any kind of trap you like in your mine. I'm just trying to think of ones that are more suitable for a mine than anything else. I guess that's where my head is at with that. So we're going to come back to that topic very, very shortly, but not just yet. Because I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break. It's top of the hour. I've been missing those breaks quite a lot, and I obviously need them. And it means that I can sort of calm down a little bit. But I think what we also need to do is we need to start thinking about our monster population. Is there something else that somebody else wants to discuss with regard to mines? We can. I'm kind of happy to do that. But I think probably the next big thing to deal with after mines is definitely going to be like, how do we approach and deal with the population within our mine? Because you've got two different mines essentially that you're likely to be looking at. Rather than we've got the three types of mines. We've got the vertical shaft, we have the bell-shaped mine, and we have the open mine. And the bell-shaped mine and the vertical mine are the only two that you can really utilize. And the bell-shaped is probably better than all the rest in terms of exploring for your games, right? I think that's a given. Even if I fill it up with traps and give you a whole lot of ideas for traps that you can use, I still think what we need is we still need to have monsters that would live, or creatures that would live in a mine. And a lot of creatures that live in caves will also live in a mine, but it's where they're going to likely live. I don't know if you want to talk about that. It's a hashtag. Do you want to talk about what monsters would live in a mine? And what monsters do you think will be in a mine? So I'm going to put that down. So Grimtooth's book has tons of traps. Would have to browse through them. Yeah, well, but I'm not going to buy that book, and yeah, it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I just don't buy books anymore. The reality is, people are sending me so many books, I can't keep up. I've still got stuff to review and look through. So yes, Grimtooth's is. I keep hearing about Grimtooth's for traps, but yes, let's come back to this in a second. I want you to have a think about that. That's the task. I'll be back in about 5 minutes or less, and we'll work our way through, and I'll fill out some more traps. I'll grab a couple more books that I can reference, and then we'll start dealing with monster populations, which I think is probably next on the cards, right? Okay, Arnold's going to look after you. I'll be back in 5 minutes or less. coming back in here, people. Coming back in here. Let's see what we got. Sweet. Sweet. All right. I think I'm pretty much ready to continue our journey along the mine trap topic, but we'll see what people have come up with monsters, if anything. And that's not the one I want. All right. See, Charles has already started porting a few creatures across. Okay, that's good. So let's just go to the screen here. And I should be able to switch over. There we go. Mines and traps. Let's have a look. So first off, let's jump into the ecosystem of a mine. Yeah, that's really what we're talking about here, is the ecosystem. So while you guys are coming up with ideas for that sort of stuff, I'm going to type them in, and then I'm going to work on the trap stuff and start adding it in. I've got about 4 books here that have trap stuff. That's quite a lot, I realise. So now I just need to find the section that I had written up for populations. No, don't do that. Oh, I almost lost control. Mine population, did I have that? Oh, here we go. Monsters, mine population. Here we go. So, animals and critters. And critters. I think I might actually be able to port a lot of stuff over from somewhere else. Like caves. Cave locations are going to have the same sorts of things going on. It's cave bridges, hazards, animal populations. Okay, so animals commonly found in caves. We can port that over. Giant spiders. A lot of this is actually going to be very, very similar. I'm going to port all of this over and put it in the monster section, and then we'll adjust it, because it won't be completely correct, obviously. Okay, next. And let's see. There we go. Animals commonly found in a mine are... what have you got here? Let's take some of your ideas. You have... Let's go with the animals first. So you've put down here rats. I think we had rats. No, we don't have rats. We'll put rat in. We need rat. Rats. We've got rats now. Done. You've got monsters as well. Oozes, slimes. I think I'm going to put that under monsters, slimes. Giant spiders. I think I got spiders here. Whether they're giant sized or normal sized doesn't really matter. Ghasts, ghouls, goblins, rats. Okay, so okay. Ecosystem, yeah. Rust monster, eating the old metal minecarts. Yeah, I think that goes under monster for us. So I've got here bats, bears, that would happen. Rats, snakes, spiders, millipedes, centipedes, salamander lizards, so I put lizards. Cave fisher. Oh, that's a monster, isn't it? I feel like a cave fisher is a monster. Crayfish, probably not. Insects, yes. Tigers, crabs, shrimp. I don't know why I had these down here. I'm going to ditch these ones. Suppose you could have a tiger in a cave. You probably will. Insects, crayfish. Oh, let's get rid of the crayfish. I don't think we necessarily have the crayfish. Cave fish is really a monster. So let's cut that out of there. Chuck this down here in that section there. Paste. Okay. Lizards. Okay. Spiders or giant spiders will set up their webs and lairs closer to the mine entrance. I'm going to say the same thing. It's the same problem as you always have with a spider. They need something to be caught in the web, and animals don't go very deep, so you always have it near the entrance. Same sort of thing. Various creatures you've put down here. Let's have a look. Anything that I've missed? I've got mole men, ropers, piercers, myconids, shrieker, giant fire beetles, caveman, goblins. I think you had goblins down, didn't you? Yes, you did. Goblins, troglodytes, kobolds, magma, mephit. Yeah, okay. Orcs, yeah. Ooze, I think you had oozes down. Yes, you did. Rot grubs. I think somebody had written down rot grubs somewhere. Have we got rot grubs? Yes, we did. Earth elemental. Rust monster actually makes sense in this location, doesn't it? Rust monster. Really kind of depends. Although it's the mining equipment that's made out of metal that they'll be after, right? Earth elemental, yes. Cloaker, Otiog, yes. Umber Hulk, yes. Salamander, yes. Chattel, maybe. Phase Spider, yes. Carrion Crawler, Cave Fisher. Was there anything you had? Slimes, oozes and slimes. Slimes, yep, that's it. We've got slimes in there. Ghast, ghouls. So we were talking about undead. This is probably where we need to separate some of our monsters. So undead monsters found in a mine. And you have put down already Ghast, yes. Ghast, ghouls, zombies and skeletons. They would be at the lowest levels because they can survive down there. So that's where we would generally put them. One of the benefits of a mine is you do not need to structure a mine like your traditional dungeon, where everything at the lowest level is the most dangerous thing. You can kind of, with a mine, because it's going to have probably less levels than a mega dungeon, you can kind of structure it so it makes a bit more sense. A dragon, a purple worm, and a behir. These are powerful monsters in a mine. In a mine, I'm going to let you guys have a bit more of a think about this while I start working on the trap stuff. I think that's a good idea. Let me just refresh, and let's grab the first book that I need to look through. First book. What do we got here? Right. So I said it had nothing in it, but I will actually check, rather than making the comment that the Pathfinder Game Mastery Guide for 2nd edition is junk. I will actually check. Okay, so I've got it in my hands. I will look. Let's have a look and see what it has. I have been reading through this thing and doing a review. I am part way ready to deliver a review on this book, but I'm probably going to hold off on it for a variety of different reasons. One of which is it takes a long time to read. And there's a lot of stuff in here. It's just whether it's stuff that's any good to you, right? that's the big problem. Okay, so does it have an index? Where's my index? It's a glossary. It's a glossary and index. Okay, so let's go trap. If I look up trap, so they included the trap and the glossary together. And what do you know? Doesn't have it in the contents page, doesn't have it in the back. So here's another big boo-hoo-hoo for Pathfinder. This is hopeless for traps. You won't find anything. There's nothing there. Okay, next one. Let's try. I've got the Dungeon Master Guide for 2nd edition. So we'll come back to the creatures and so forth in a second, but let's go back to our trap section and the traps that we would find in our maze. in our mine. So this is the Dungeon Master Guide number 2 for Dungeons and Dragons 4E. I know it's 4E, people, I know, but sometimes there's stuff in here that's actually worth using. And I have the book, so I might as well look. I'm at least thorough in my research, am I not? Okay, let's have a look here. Templates, no, monster themes, skill challenges, paragon stuff, organizations, skill challenges, terrain, sample traps. Here we go, 66. Now we're talking 66, and there's a few pages there, which is quite a bit. Ooh, what have we got here? Let's find some traps for you, people. Right, first trap on the Kissing Maiden. I don't know that the Kissing Maiden. Let me read this out to you so that you can hear. This is what they've given us for the Kissing Maiden. This is Dungeons and Dragons 4E. When a square is entered, a section of the floor slides aside and a stone post levers up to hit the creature in the square, pushing it back. The stone post then swings back down to reset the trap as long as the square is empty. So the Kissing Maiden is basically this: you step on a panel, or you step on a pressure plate, and then a stone pillar basically, or post, swings up, whacks you in the face, and then disappears back down into the floor again. Hilarious. Most of the newer books seem to assume you have the original AD&D DMG for its good tables and other contents. So Fred, I have got AD&D beside me. Don't you worry. I don't know about the Kissing Maiden. The Kissing Maiden is amusing, but would you put it in a mine? Falling Iron Portcullis, probably not suitable. It's portcullis, falling iron portcullis. Yeah, maybe if you were dealing with a castle, but I don't think a mine would be the one. Water filling chamber. A water filling chamber. Well, if there's water already down there, you really wouldn't want to make a trap that had water involved. That would be like a really bad idea. The water filling chamber. Can I just assure you, people, I've used a water filling chamber as a trap. It is one of the worst traps that you can include in a game, because it's either you escape or you perish. And those types of traps make a lot of sense, but they are horrible as a player, because it's like the crushing ceiling. You either escape or you are squished and you're dead. Very old school. The crushing wall room. Oh, I didn't write that down, did I? The giant rolling boulder is already here. We've talked about that one before. The death strangler statue. What? This statue is a masked humanoid holding... Now, you wouldn't have a statue in the middle of a mine. Let's forget about that. I should read it out to you, but I'm not putting it in there. So the masked humanoid holding a wicked-looking spiked chain in each hand. When a creature approaches, it comes alive, lashing out with its chains. Okay, that's whatever. Elemental tiles. Okay, so basically something elemental happens when you step on a tile. Okay, whatever. Phantom Hunter. What's this? Wind rushes by and condenses into a ghostly form that has roughly the shape of a large hunting cat. It attacks, and then it is a bit weird. Okay. Pain Vault. This highly complicated vault looks like it's in pain to pick. This is weird. This is weird. I'm leaving it alone. Life-eating haze. With a violent hiss, the billow of blue-tinged purple gas fills the room. Okay, yeah. Okay, so basically it's a trap that's gas. It's a gas trap. We've kind of got gas traps already going on here, but they just blow up in this case. What else we got here? Far Realm Star Trap. What? Light bends strangely in the room due to the dimensional distortion. Motes that resemble starlight bob up and down in 6 places throughout the area. No, I don't think so. The Maddening Mural. That's a mural that okay, so it affects your mind. This is a wall painting. I don't think so. Put that aside. We're not using that one. Reverse gravity glyph trap. originally for lifting ore, which was then pulled or racked. Yeah. So one of the things I'm going to do, Charles, is I'm not going to include magic traps, because you can include any type of magic trap into a mine. So one of the things I'm trying to do is I'm going to stick to mechanical traps in this list. That makes sense for a mine, and because magical would be just an endless, infinite list, and an endless, infinite list is not really doable realistically. So it's not like the idea is bad, Charles. I'm just thinking in terms of, like, since you can put any kind of magical trap anywhere, there's no point making a list of magical traps, which is why anytime I see them pop up here, I'm kind of ignoring them. You might have noticed that most of these traps are all sort of biological or mechanical in nature. Yeah. I'm just thinking in terms of the practicality of and how useful it can be to you. Okay, so next one. So this here is the Dungeon Master Guide for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition, a book which I have not reviewed, and Dan, who sent it to me, I assure you I will review it. I just haven't done it yet. I will. I promise. It'll happen. People, if you want to see it, I will do it. It's just I haven't done it yet. It'll happen. Okay, let's have a look and see what we've got in here. Give me some good stuff. Give me some good stuff. What do we got here? Something nice and interesting. So, looking through this resource, combat, experience, traps. There's got to be an index in here. It's so huge, it would probably take me forever to find anything. Planes, treasure tables. Well, let's try the index. You've got to have an index in it, right? This is back when they actually believed in making indexes. Here we go. We've got an index. Great. Traps. Are you kidding me? You're kidding me. Oh no. Trapping, trap finding and removal. Okay, so let's see. Trapping, 84. What is on 84? 84. Trapping. No. Okay, that didn't help me. Let's try that again. That was really strange. Traps, finding, removal. Okay, 56. Page 56. Is page 56 going to do any better? Traps, here we go. 56. What? Is this index broken? This is strange. I didn't realize the index was so whack. I'm looking up pages for things and it's not there. Is the index incorrect? It's literally, I haven't seen a single thing on traps. Is this the wrong index? Hang on, this index cross-references both the Dungeon Master Guide and the Player's Handbook. Red entries are pages in the DMG. Oh my God, you're kidding me. You're kidding me. Those weren't, none of those things on traps were in the DMG. Trapping? Would it be under something else? Trees, turning. I had no idea. I did not even realize, and I owned this book for years. I had no idea that this was such a piece of crap. Is it that bad? Surely not. No. It's so... Okay. All right. So I haven't reviewed this book, people, but I'm going to say it right now. I started out with Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition. This is Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition. And I can assure you, I looked up traps, and there is nothing in this book about traps for the Dungeon Master. There's nothing in there. Literally nothing. You might be thinking, oh, it must be in the Player's Handbook, Fred. You're looking in the, if you looked in the Player's Handbook, there's probably stuff on traps. Well, if it's in red, it would be in... But guess what? There are no red page numbers for that at all. Traps, trap finding, none of it in the player's handbook. So, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition, you suck when it comes to traps. There's nothing. It's like they removed them from the game. I'm really disappointed. I haven't had a chance to fully look at this thing, but this is not good. All right. Let's try another book, shall we? Let's transition back over and see if we can find something that's actually going to do what it needs to do. So I've got here Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, the Dungeon Master Guide for 1st Ed edition. This is Gary Gygax. So let's see if Gary's got traps sorted out. This is so funny. When I start pulling out multiple resources and comparing what I can find in each thing, you start to realize where there are some very odd problems. Okay, Gary, don't let me down. Okay, because I show no mercy. And I will go bananas if it's not here. I'm pretty sure it is. Because I have actually looked through this book before. It's just about whether I can find it. That's another big problem with this book, is trying to find stuff. Constructing games, miscellaneous, using magic items, treasure, no. Campaign, climate. It's probably in the back somewhere. I don't even know. I don't even think there's an index in this book. Shiner, it's not even it's not even that funny. It's not even that funny. Like, how can you have a book and there's nothing on traps in it? And a Dungeon Master Guide. And then there's nothing in the player's handbook either. Not in the Dungeon Master Guide, not in the player's handbook. Wow. Let's just ignore the traps. People hated them. Surely that wasn't Lorraine Williams's idea. Is that what was going on there? I don't know. Maybe it was the current designers. I have a who wrote this thing? I think it was it Zub? God, if it was Zub. Oh, Zub, you're gonna get a whole mouthful of interesting stuff. I can tell you that now. I will have a word with you. This is going to be difficult. Oh, hang on. Here we go. Index. Thank God I found an index. It's not at the very back though. Okay, here we go. So traps. T. Here we go. Traps. Voila. And we have finding traps. List of traps. Please tell me 216 is actually going to have something on traps in the book. 216. Let's have a look here. Hold your breath, people. Hold your breath. 216. Oh, yes, we do. But it's just a list of traps. It's not a lot. It's a table of traps. So Gary's put a table of traps in here. So what have you got here? An arrow trap, poison armed arrow trap. You have a ball trap. What's a ball trap? Ball bearing trap? Caltrop traps, ceiling lowers, ceiling collapse, chult, a chute, some sort of chute, door falling, gas stuff, spring resistor. Okay, so this is actually not very useful, that table. So this is Appendix G, traps, table to 100, but kind of useless. Unfortunate. Gary, let's try again. Let's look on another page on traps, see if you can do any better. Because so far, you're not doing great either. I can't even imagine that you might not have these things here. Okay, so here we go. So that was 217, but there's also page 172. There's a few different pages here. There's a lot of page references, people. So 172. Let's try that one. 172. Oh, now we're talking. That's a bit better. Tricks and traps, oil pit, wall, oil, flask pit, spear trap. Nothing really new here though. Gas, caverns. Okay. magic pools. There's not really much there either. That's pretty slim. It's just tables, but it's not really, there's not even that much information in the tables. Okay. Right. Well, at least they've got traps in this book, even though it's pretty sparse in terms of the information. Okay, so try again. Page 19 and 97. 19 and 97. 19 and 97. 97. What do you got here? Bugger all. There's not a lot there. Okay, that's okay. Oh, hearing, detecting traps, hearing noise. Okay, that's 19. Let's try 19. Maybe that'll be better. Page 19. That ain't good either. All right. There's a little bit in this, but Gary, there's not that much. I think Gary didn't really like traps that much. I get the distinct feeling that Gary was not a trap person. So we're going to put that aside. Okay. All right. So I've looked through all of my Game Master and Dungeon Master resources, trying to find stuff on traps. And I wanna just spell it out, people. I want to spell it out for those of you who are needing traps in your games. Like you're trying to do traps. This book, the Pathfinder Game Mastery Guide, 2nd edition, and I hate to say it, that 1st edition Pathfinder Game Mastery Guide is kind of pretty much the same. So Logan Boner and Mark Sifter, you guys, what the heck are you doing making a Game Mastery Guide or a Dungeon Master Guide and you've got no traps or information on traps in it? What are you doing? Are you silly? Are you insane? Like, who makes a book on Game Master stuff and Dungeon Master stuff? Have you just decided that, like, you know, modern players hate traps? We won't put traps into the Game Master Guide at all? Like, that's weird. And it's in this one as well. This one has nothing. And this one here, who wrote this? Who designed this thing? This is the first one, which I had thought was doing a really good job. James Jacob. James Jacob, your Game Mastery book has almost nothing useful. You've got a couple of, like a handful of hazards. I wouldn't even call them traps. There's hardly anything in here. Hardly anything. What? Come on. Get it together. All right, now, here's the funniest one. This is an older book. This is going back to Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Who are you? David Zeb Cook. Oh, dear David. Oh, David. It's a good thing hardly anybody watches my channel. David Zeb Cook. You made Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, the Dungeon Master Guide, and you put no traps in here. There's no information on traps. Are you absolutely silly as? What is going on here, people? This is weird. I don't understand. You don't have to make a trap that like outright kills them, but at least have something. All right. Okay. I've had my wine. Do we need to have a How to D&D and Roll for Combat crossover stream? No, because I don't really agree with a lot of what Stephen has to say about stuff. And I don't really agree with a lot of stuff that Mark has to say about stuff. I don't think it would go well. And I don't think it would happen. Because if I remember right, Stephen said he was going to send me one of his books, and he never did. No, I don't really want to meet Stephen. And I'm not that keen on meeting Mark either. Because if you say you're going to do something, then do it. And they didn't do it. Instead, it didn't happen. So, yes. I'm aware of Stephen before he had a YouTube channel. I am. Okay, so let's go back to here. So we are done with traps because apparently there are no more, and all the resources that I have currently at my disposal without going and buying new stuff, which I'm not going to do. So, sorry people, that's all the traps you get. Let's go to monster populations, shall we? Because I got 20 minutes, which means I probably should leave in about 10 minutes. Let's deal with our monster populations. Let's get that nailed down. And I apologize for the fact that I have really, it's in jest in many respects, if you haven't figured it out. I mean, I also think that, and just legitimately, like you put out a book and you don't have anything on traps, and it's a game master or dungeon master guide, there's something wrong with your book. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you do that? That's really odd. It's kind of like putting out a book and like not explaining, oh, I'm going to give you a game master guide or a dungeon master guide, but I'm not going to explain to you how to make your own classes or races, because if I do that, then you won't buy my stuff. I don't like that either. I'm not a fan of that sort of thing. Okay. What do you got here? Emerald Akbar disapproves of his lack of That's right. Emerald Akbar disapproves of your lack of traps in the books. Yes. In the words of Scooby-Doo, Roo-hoo. Roo. Okay. Monster populations. So, monsters are going to live near the surface, close to the entrance or shafts. Shafts because that is where they can breathe. Now you have to remember, even though we have three types of mines, the vertical, the open, and the bell-shaped underground. If a mine is abandoned, there's going to be a lot less air down on the bottom of the mine. So it's going to be even more difficult for a creature to live there if the mine is currently vacant. So this makes the problem even more difficult. If the mine is occupied, then something that's alive can live further down because there'll be air being drawn down by the fire or furnace, or they'll be being pumped down. But in most cases, it's probably not going to be there. So there's a little bit of an issue. So golems we don't have a problem with. Undead can handle it because they don't have to breathe, they can't drown. And okay, so animals commonly found in a mine are bats, bears, rats, snakes, spiders, millipedes, centipedes, salamander lizards, insects, and tigers. I think you usually don't find a lion inside a cave. Much to my surprise, I did a bit of research. It was quite interesting. But a tiger will go into a cave. Okay, so we talked about the spider stuff. Monsters. What do we got here in monsters? Monsters that I had suggested. Now, the problem with bigger, larger, more powerful monsters like a dragon or a purple worm or bear, it's not so much an issue for a purple worm, but a dragon is going to have a lot of trouble because it's bulky and it's likely to cause a lot of damage to the mine. The whole thing could cave in if it's not careful. So I don't know that a dragon is going to be very fond of a mine. I think it's going to depend. It's a bit of a question mark, that one, if you ask me. But here, we'll have a look at that in a second. I'll think a bit more about that a bit, and we'll. But undead monsters found in a mine, ghasts, ghouls, zombies, and skeletons. Is there any sort of lesser undead that we might find down there? I think that covers most of them. I don't think we're going to have much else. Ghasts, ghouls, zombies, and skeletons in a mine seem to be about the sort of standard, I would imagine. Ghosts. Ghosts. We can have ghosts in a mine. Let's put down ghost. I had forgotten that. Actually, that's one undead that you're probably very likely to come across. Ghosts. So the dead miner's ghost would be a common thing you would find in a mine at the lower levels, particularly if there was a collapse of some kind. And if they died under unusual circumstances and they have unfinished business, they might be sort of trapped in that location. So that's one way of looking at that, I guess. Okay, so next, monsters. Let's look at monsters. We've got mole men, roper, piercer, myconids, that's fine. Shrieker, giant fire beetle, caveman, Yeah, I guess, but not probably that deep. Goblins, troglodytes, kobolds, magma, mephit. Magma, mephit, yes, I suppose. Ogre, orcs, ooze, rock grubs, rust monster, earth elemental, cloaker, Otiog, yes. Umber Hulk, salamander, yes. Chul, I don't know. I suppose Chul. Yeah, if there's water, there would be. Phase spider, carrion crawler, cave fish for sure. Cave fishers. I don't know about you. How many of you have had to deal with a cave fisher? Cave fishers suck. The number of cave fishers that are caught, because they always seem to be positioned right by a deep hole, and they cause all sorts of problems. So I'm not a fan of the cave fisher, but they would finding it in a mine just makes a lot of sense. So let's see that. So that's what I wanted from that. Now I need. Oh, here we go. We need to establish our creatures and monsters we would find in our mine. That would make sense. I don't think there's a table that covers monsters in that kind of terrain. I think the Dungeon Master Guide for 5e has something like that. I believe there are a couple of the Dungeon Master Guides that do that as well. Let's have a look and see what they say. I think most of them are going to be for subterranean or the Underdark, which is I guess the biggest problem is we're not necessarily focusing in on that aspect of it. Okay, so challenge rating, forget about challenge rating. Let's keep going here. Okay, so urban, no. Underwater monsters, no. Underdark monsters, that's the Underdark. Mountain, hill, swamp, grasslands, forest, desert, coastland, Arctic. I guess it's really going to come down to Underdark monsters. So if I have a quick look through here, starting at the top, there must be most of these should kind of work to a certain degree, right? Purple worm you can put underground in any case. Death tyrant, no, I don't think so. Beholder, a young red shadow dragon, Behir, aboleth. Would an aboleth be in a mine or a cave? I think you can probably get away with an aboleth. Let's put an aboleth in here. I'll add aboleth to the list. Because it's it's sort of like the dark regions of the world, aboleth. Particularly if the mine winds up having a channel or a passageway or a shaft dug into the aboleth's cave. So we'll put aboleth. I didn't include fire giant, but fire giant and stone giant would make a lot of sense too, wouldn't it? Fire giant for sure. Fire giant for sure. I think we can say that's a given. So we'll put fire giant. Stone giant. They all make sense. What do you think? Do you think mine flayers would set up their own mines? I mean, it's more Underdark, I feel. It's certainly, it just feels more like it's Underdark, subterranean, not necessarily a mine. I don't think you would find mine flayers in a mine. I think the mine flayers would actually control the mines of somebody else and get them to do all the mining. You might have like an overseer mine flayer, and that's probably about it. Does that make sense? I think that makes more sense. I don't think you'd see mine flayers actually hacking out the rock and digging out, or they'd get somebody else as slaves to do that. So yes, do I add mine flayers? That's a good question. Cyclops, actually Cyclops, if you look at the mythology of the Cyclops, they are crafters and builders. So they may well actually have their own mine. That actually makes a lot more sense. Any cave-dwelling beasts? Yeah, I think, well, to a certain degree. So let's put down here. let's put down here Cyclops. Okay, I'm going to add Cyclops in there because they are crafters, so they might actually do some mining of their own. Cyclops are kind of like the larger version of the dwarf. When you think about them, I know a lot of the time people just assume that they are the primitive, dumb brutes that eat people, but that's not really the Cyclops, really. Dungeons and Chronics, hello. It's all right. You're allowed to be late. So I'm just looking through and trying to find some various things that would make sense to have down here. And I think we have most of them there. I think it's mostly sorted out. Oh, would you have a Minotaur? Would you have a Minotaur in a it's really, Minotaur I feel like is a maze sort of thing, so I'm going to leave it alone. A hooked horror. Would we put a hooked horror down here? Actually, it kind of makes a bit more sense. We could do a hooked horror. Let's add a hooked horror in here. Hooked horror. Kind of feels like it's so similar to the Umber Hulk. Hook horror. We'll add that in. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, is mine flayers would probably not be found in the mine. They would enslave somebody else to do it. That's exactly what I was thinking. No, I don't think gargoyles make sense. Gas giant construct. No. The Gricks would probably be in a mine. The only problem with the Gricks are just the most boring monster under the sun. I think that's my biggest concern about the Grick, is it's such a boring monster to include. Duragar. Actually, Duragar make a lot of sense. Why didn't I not put the Duragar down here? The dark dwarves. Duragar. Let's put Duragar. Deep gnomes. I suppose deep gnomes would make sense. Deep gnomes. Okay, we've got that down. Grimlock would actually make a lot of sense too, because the Grimlock would probably be... You'd probably have Grimlock controlled by Mind Flayers. Or you could. I'll put Grimlock. I mean, there's a myriad of different things you could put down in a mine, I would imagine. I'm just trying to pick the ones that are kind of making the most amount of sense. And so far, I feel like I'm pretty close to where it needs to be. A shadow. I hadn't thought about that, but a shadow makes a lot of sense here. Under undead, shadow. Let's add the shadow in. Okay. Am I there? Am I done? I think that's probably about it. I think that's good enough. And of course, you can always change your list. It's not like mine's a definitive list or anything like that. Nothing like that going on there. Okay, so there we go. So today has been relatively productive. We've come up with a whole lot of different hazards for a mine. We've done some trap research and discovered that there's a lot of books out there that are resources for game masters and dungeon masters, and they don't do a very good job. They're actually quite poor. We've got our traps, we've got our hazards. A little bit of information around them needs to be sort of to fill it all out. We've done a bit of research on monster populations. I think in about 2 months we'll come back and we'll talk about... I imagine we're going to wind up talking about the different types of things you would find in a production slope. So I think that's probably one of the topics that we'll start working on, is the different types of ores or veins of ore that you would wind up digging out of the ground to use. So that you can kind of make up your own type of mine. Is it a gold mine, a silver mine, a coal mine, or whatever the heck it is? I mean, there's lots of different things that get dug out of the ground. But I guess starting to work on that would be a good idea for the future. And yeah, I'll do my best to do a bit more research on mining and see if I can't develop a bit more information. I think at this point we are doing pretty well. What we probably do need to make sure that I do in the future is we need to have mine adventure hooks. We need adventure hooks for a mine. Like that seems to be a given. As like I haven't included that at this point, but mine adventure hooks would be top on the list, right? So mine adventure hooks for mines. I will just mark that down as a question mark to work on in the future, because I was thinking about this, since it's supposed to be about running adventures, we need to make sure that we actually tie in and connect adventure hooks for each of these. Every time I talk about this, I should be talking about the types of adventure hooks you would use, and or we could use. I'm glad. Look, if I covered some stuff that you didn't consider and I presented you with some new ideas, great. I think that's good. I'm very happy that that's the case. We will end the poll, and then I will go to work. And tomorrow, what is tomorrow? Tomorrow is, I think it's world building tomorrow. We're going to build a world. Every 2 months we build a new world. I think we should build a clockwork world. That would be fun. I've got an image for it that might stir the imagination. So that is Game Master preparation, and we will build a world. It would be nice to build a clockwork world. I think that would be a lot of fun. So do you want to design your own mine for an adventure and a role-playing game? Yes, 81%. Well, that's good. You're in the right place. Just watching, 12%. Undecided, 6%. No, 0%. Well, that worked out well. 16 votes. Great. Sweet as. Nice, nice, nice. So I want to say a big thank you to everybody. Thank you to my patrons who support me on Patreon so I can keep doing this every single week. The intention is this program, although it looks like it's identical, is actually slightly different every single time we run it, in an endeavor to try to build it out. And I will change it once it's kind of fleshed out completely. I will start adjusting it so that it has a bit more, I guess, usefulness for you in terms of how you can apply it. We'll start doing a bit more applied stuff rather than conceptual stuff. Conceptual stuff is always nice, though. So, yeah, thank you to Charles, Shiner81. Thank you for being here. Yeah, world building's always good. Thank you for being here, Michael, F. Hubber, Dungeons and Chronics. Who else was here that has been hanging out with us? Buckaroo Bonsai has been hanging out for us. That was great. Thank you for being here as well. Big Kid. There's been a bunch of you, and it's always good when you hear Nacho Man, Dinomancer. Thank you. And if you're just watching, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking part in the poll. And if I missed your name, I do apologize. So wherever you are in the world, please, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, night, or the wee early morning, look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbors. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.